All right, now this is part two of The Bible is Historically Accurate. We just got done talking about Jericho. Now we're going to talk about Ai in Joshua 8. Dr. Scott Stripling used biblical records as a guide to locate the lost city of Ai. He told the Daily Star in 2019, quote, "My work in archaeology in Israel has affected me profoundly as a believer. I already believed in the Bible, but as the years go by, I have seen hundreds of examples of synchronization between the material culture we are excavating and what I read in the text. This is a constant reminder that there is a God and that he left a record of his work in history." That's pretty fascinating. Now, if you don't know, the story of Ai is where they took out the king and hung him, and then they buried him under a pile of rocks at the entrance to the city. And I believe they found that pile of rocks as well. It's like 19 feet tall. It's insane, like an acre wide or half an acre wide or something like that. Um, anyways, other cities that have been discovered and proving the Bible accurate is Joppa in Acts 9, Nineveh in 2 Kings 19, Shechem in Genesis 12, Susa in Nehemiah 1:1. But let's go on, all right? There are artifacts found from Bible accounts, which is really cool. We talked about the unit of measurement called the cubit, and that comes from Noah's Ark. If you look at Genesis 6:15, God told Noah, "And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, the height of it 30 cubits." Prior to the discovery of the cubit in the 1800s, people thought this was a made-up sci-fi measurement for a sci-fi story of the destruction of the earth. Okay? Literally, that's what people thought. Nobody has ever used the cubit. It's retarded. This is a made-up thing, right? Then the discovery of King Hezekiah's tunnel and the Siloam inscription proved that the cubit was a unit of measurement that was approximately 18 inches long that has been used since ancient times. Now, I remember in 1990 when I was in school and I started Googling this stuff, not Google back then, but I started researching this stuff, and you could find this information. Now, when you Google when was the cubit discovered, all you'll see is that people say the cubit's been used since like 3000 BC or whatever by the Egyptians and the Israelites and many other nations. So it's commonly accepted now. But even just 20 or 30 years ago, people did not commonly accept that. It was still a relatively new discovery. Very strange, but 1984, people delete things off the internet and hide the truth, just so you know. All right, so the next thing that people found, Revelation chapter 3, the church at Laodicea. This was found by a Turkish archaeologist named Simsek. He discovered sacred items used in Christian worship while excavating a house in Laodicea. The peristyle house, built around a central garden or courtyard, was located next to a theater and was likely owned by wealthy people. And this is his own words. He concluded the house with a church will add to scholars' understanding of how Christianity spread in Laodicea since the middle of the first century. So even New Testament books are leading to archaeological discoveries. There's another one from the Old Testament, the Goliath Wall. This is the excavation at Tel Es-Safi, the Philistine city of Gath. They reached a layer that dates to the 11th century before Christ, the time of King David. The walls of this layer are 13 feet thick, twice as thick as previously excavated walls from the 9th and the 10th centuries. And archaeologists are calling this the Goliath layer after the city's most famous resident of the time. Interesting, huh? The story of David and Goliath. And relatively newer, we have found a seal, an official seal belonging to Galayahu, the son of Immer. So this was at the Temple Mount. It's called the Temple Mount Sifting Project. It was reopened in New Jerusalem, in a New Jerusalem location. Researchers announced the discovery of a clay bola, identifying it as, quote, the first readable ancient Hebrew inscription found on the Temple Mount. The priestly family of Immer served in the temple in 1 Chronicles 24. Pashur, the son of Immer, is called the chief official in the temple of Yahweh when he had Jeremiah beaten and put in the stocks. That's in Jeremiah chapter 20, verse 1 and 2. So now we have found proof of this historical character. We've also found a seal of Natan Melech, the king's servant. Believe it's 2007. And this dates back to 586 BC. And he is in 2 Kings 23, verse 11. He is an official in the court of the king of Josiah. Lots of artifacts. Again, these are just the tip of the iceberg. If you just Google it, you'll see hundreds. Now, archaeological proof of Israel and biblical timelines. Again, tons of these here. There's one big archaeological, terminology that is used called the stela, which is basically a stone monument that is carved with words or cuneiform text, okay? So you'll hear that word a lot, the stela. The first one that I have listed is the Merneptah stela, which is by archaeologist Flinders Petrie in 1896. Among the other enemies of Egypt on this stela, the word for Israel is found. Biblical scholars have dated this to be among the earliest mention of the Israelites in archaeological history. This pharaoh reigned and obviously commissioned this stone to be built from 1213 to 1203 BC. So what that means, that puts to rest any historical argument for Palestine. The first record of the word Palestine is around the 1st century BC or AD. I don't remember which. This is from 1200 BC. So remember, Palestine was used to try and eradicate the Israeli name after they were destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. The term merely meant desolation or the place of Philistines. So Hudson.org has a great paper on the history of that region, and this says, quote, "No precise definition existed for the name Palestine because none was required. Since the Roman era, the name lacked political significance. No nation has ever had that name until after 1948 or 1946 when Israel became a nation again. And then people started saying, oh, it's Palestine, and it never was. The term was meaningful to Christians as synonymous with the Holy Land. It was meaningful to Jews as synonymous with Eretz Yisrael, which is Hebrew for the land of Israel. As noted by the Palestinian scholar Mohammed Musleh in The Origins of Palestinian Nationalism, he said Arabic speakers sometimes used the Arabic words for Holy Land, but never coined a uniquely Arabic name for the territory. Philistine is the Arabic pronunciation of the Roman terminology Palestine. All it referred to was a desolate land, and sometimes there were people there from Philistia. Nomads, people that roamed through the area. Way back in ancient times, it was owned by the Philistines, but they were conquered by the Jews, so it became Israel. So this particular stela, the Merneptah stela from 1213 BC, proves that Israel owned that land. All right, then as far as more artifacts, we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, basically a preserved library containing scrolls from 300 BC until the 1st century AD. These have prophecies of Jesus Christ 400 years before he ever came around. All right, then we have the quadrilingual Darius I jar. This mentions the Darius I of Persia, also known as Darius the Great, in the books of Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Daniel. So those books of the Bible mention Darius the First. So the museum has a Persian calcite jar with 4 inscriptions that praise Darius in 4 different languages, proving the existence of this king from biblical times. The Mesha stela was discovered in 1868. It was written by King of Moab, King Mesha, in the late 9th century BC, with parts that correspond to events in the Hebrew Bible. This inscription, this stela, talks about how Mesha's leadership of Moab led to triumph against Israel. 9th century. All right, so 900 BC. Now we also have the Epic of Gilgamesh. That's 12 stone tablets George Smith discovered in 1872. It has the Assyrian narrative of the flood on one of the tablets. These are dated to the 7th century BC. So it's very similar to the story of Noah. So it lends a lot of credence to that because it talks about how one man was told by God to build a boat to save himself and his family. Now here's a cool one I just found out about while I was doing this podcast is the Ketef Hinnom scrolls in 1979. They are scrolls made from silver, like metal. In order to unravel these scrolls, it took them almost 3 years to open the first one and to decipher it. It's dated from 600 BC. It's written in Paleo-Hebrew writing. The text is from the Book of Numbers, and it has been hailed as one of the most remarkable biblical discoveries ever recorded. They predate the oldest Dead Sea Scrolls by more than 400 years, and therefore they're useful for textual criticism of the Bible, thus proving further the accuracy of our modern-day Bible translations. We also have found an old limestone box known as the Caiaphas ossuary, which was found in a burial cave in the Jerusalem suburb of the Peace Forest in 1990. The ossuary is a container for bones of the dead, has inscriptions in Aramaic with the name Joseph, son of Caiaphas, and is thought to have held the remains of the high priest Caiaphas. Caiaphas presided over the Jewish council that tried and sentenced Jesus to death, called the Sanhedrin, according to the Gospels. This gives credible proof for the presence of the figure and the story described in the New Testament. And then there's another Tel Dan stela in 1993 that was discovered. So look, here's the point, guys. The conclusion of all of this historical stuff, archaeology, everything combined. Number one, kings and other famous people of the Bible have been proven to have existed. Locations, battles, kingdoms, and cities of the Bible have been proven to have existed. Many artifacts have been found that prove these people, places, and events. Many writings have been found from non-biblical kings inscribed in stone that prove biblical places, people, and events. Here's the point. Anyone who scoffs at the Bible as having made up stories is laughably ignorant of the facts. Why does that matter to you? It's important to realize that the Bible is not merely a spiritual book, but it is a verifiably accurate set of books from God that has been proven empirically, scientifically, to be trustworthy, logically, historically, scientifically, archaeologically, and morally. So this gives us more than ample reason to trust what it says, even on things that haven't been proven yet, or spiritual things that can't be proven. Think about it this way. The Bible. Think about the Bible this way. If someone is historically accurate in every detail, logically accurate in every detail, scientifically accurate in every detail, are they not then a credible source? If someone is known for telling the truth, even when it reveals bad things they have done, like the sins of God's chosen people in Israel in the Bible, like Abraham and King David, etc. If people tell the truth, even when it hurts them, doesn't that prove that they are even more reliable for truth telling? When a book or a document is verified and proven, like the Bible has been, to be the most accurate ancient document ever found in the history of mankind, why is it that that book is the most scoffed at and derided and treated as if it's fake? That's not logical. So knowing all these things about the accuracy of the Bible should give us confidence in sharing the Bible with unbelievers, and understanding that any human, whether religious or not, ought to be curious and at the very least respectful of this awesome set of books, even if you choose not to believe in God. But it clearly points to God. So if everything else is true, why wouldn't it be truthful about God? Why would somebody tell the truth every time about everything, and then when it comes to who God is, it lies? That doesn't make sense. The Bible's true. God is real. Until next time, may God bless you all.